In the lead up to Security Breach Ruin, many of us theorists were making our predictions as to what was going to happen in the DLC, what lore was going to be presented, what questions were answered, things like that. I was one of them. I actually made a few videos on the topic, but was I right about any of them? Did I get it completely wrong? There's only one way to find out. So join me as I go over everything that actually happens in Ruin and compare it to my thinking at the time, as well as suss out what my reasoning was. So slices, put on your aprons, and let's roast this Raito's theory. I feel like to give myself the most fair shot possible, it would make the most sense to go over the points I raised in my last prediction before the DLC came out after every trailer and piece of information we had. This one. I mean, look, I've been making predictions on Ruin for like a year. I made a full prediction based off of just the Chica's Chowder poster, and hey, guess what? That one was totally wrong. First up, and honestly one of the points that I feel the most validated about, the ending to Security Breach. Man, I did not see that rock. This is gonna make running difficult, but I guess I'll manage. Next page. Okay. Today's video is brought to you by Morgan & Morgan for the people. Injured and don't know where to start? With Morgan & Morgan, it's so easy, because Morgan & Morgan has modernized the injury law process, making it so easy to submit case details, sign contracts, and more all from your phone. With Morgan & Morgan, you can submit a claim without ever having to leave the couch. You don't need to sit through stuffy consultations or go to law offices or wait forever. In 8 clicks or less, you can submit a claim to Morgan & Morgan. So if you're ever injured in an accident, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. You can submit a claim in 8 clicks or less without ever having to leave the couch. For more information, go to forthepeople.com or dial #law, that's #529 in your cell phone. Thanks again to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring today's video. Well, deeper still, I guess. Maybe if I find whoever owns these woods, I'll send them a notice. Now, I'm not saying by any means that I'm the only person that thought of this, but I remember getting my fair share of derision for being so sure that the canon ending of Security Breach was going to be the Save Vanny Princess Quest ending. And while I don't think I was 100% correct, I do think the Save Vanny ending is the canon ending of Security Breach. Let's get into it. Going into Ruin, I feel like the majority assumption was that the Burn Trap ending was the canon ending to Security Breach, and that's why the Pizzaplex collapsed. It was also the only ending that had a fully animated cutscene, whereas the others were comic book pages. The credit song that's used after that ending is labeled Happy (True Ending), and even on Switch, the ending itself is labeled True Ending in the code. And also, it just felt final, you know? We go down to the secret basement and we beat the big final bad guy and we get out of there. However, I and others instead thought that the canon ending was going to be the Princess Quest one. Mainly because of this shot we see in the trailer, where what looks like Freddy, and in the DLC we see is Freddy, is getting up from an area in Phaser Blast with similar damage to its body. We didn't see his head in this trailer, and I thought at the time that was on purpose, because it would have given it away, because a headless, beaten up Freddy in a pile of staff bots in Phaser Blast perfectly matches what would have happened to him in the Save Vanny ending. And what did we see in-game? Headless Freddy, which when I saw it in-game, I reacted accordingly. No head. So no head? But I will admit, this doesn't necessarily confirm the Save Vanny ending, mainly because of that damn prototype stamp. Security Breach Freddy does not have that stamp. Trust me, we stare at those dogs all day in that game, and it's not on there. So there's a chance that if this isn't a redesign, it's literally a different Freddy in the same exact spot with very, very similar damage, which would be incredibly frustrating, but not a first for this franchise. But I personally still think that the missing head, the location of Freddy, the lack of Vanny or Gregory being in the building, and the toppled over and impaled Princess Quest 3 arcade machine is implying that the Save Vanny ending is the canon ending of Security Breach. But like I said earlier, that prediction isn't 100% right, and that's because I said only the Princess Quest ending was canon. But to be honest, I think 2 of the endings have happened. Something that always bugged me is the complete lack of Burn Trap in the Princess Quest ending, and the complete lack of Vanny in the Burn Trap ending. You'd think they'd protect each other, or at least in some way respond to the other half being defeated. related, but I've been thinking about the time between Security Breach and Ruin, especially in regards to what Vanessa and Gregory do. Bake with me for a second. I think the canon ending that actually happens is the Save Vanny ending. Gregory and Freddy have a main game voice line where they point out the Vanny hideout, and all the setups for Ruin are in that ending. But I don't think that they did that, time passed, and then Ruin happened with nothing in between. I think they went back. Think about Gregory's voice lines near the end of the game if you try to just leave through the front door.
Freddy, if I leave now, nothing will change, will it? There will be more disappearances.
Yes, I am afraid that is correct.
In the Save Vanny ending, we see Vanessa, Gregory, and Freddy's head relaxing on a hillside and thinking about what had happened. But with Gregory's mentality and Vanessa's knowledge as to what was truly going on in the Pizzaplex, I don't think those three would have just said, cool, we're free, and leave forever, leaving Burntrap to do whatever he wanted. They would most likely go back down there and try to settle this, and Ruin backs this up. We see Gregory's backpack right outside of where the Mimic is being held, so that does imply evidence that at least Gregory, if not Gregory, Vanessa, and Freddy's head, went down there to try to settle things. Now, I'm not saying that the Burntrap ending happened, at least not in the way that Security Breach shows us. Rather, I think that ending is a what-if scenario of Gregory and Freddy going down there without Vanessa's help, where in the actual canon, what I currently think happens is that the Save Vanny ending is done, Gregory, Vanessa, and Freddy's head are reminiscing and thinking about what happened, and then they all get to talking and Vanessa lets them know what was really going on. Then the three of them go back, confront Burntrap, some kind of Burntrap ending happens, and then they encounter the Mimic. Or it's turned into the Mimic because of the blob, that part's a little foggy. But then they lock the Mimic away, then they leave, and then Ruin happens at some point after. Is that confirmed? No, not really. But to me, it's the current most likely scenario. But you know what else is likely? You watching this video but not being subscribed, because apparently 62% of you aren't? Look, I get it. Doing this is cheesy and annoying, but for some reason it works, because when I do it, I get more subs, and when I don't, I don't. So, I don't know. It makes big number go up and give serotonin, so please subscribe. Anyway, on to the next prediction. This is technically not only two predictions, but one of them is the longest prediction. And that's what the antagonist of the DLC is, as well as the summary of the game. I predicted that we would be following fake instructions from a fake Gregory to release him from the pizzeria in the basement. But it turns out that the Gregory we're listening to would have actually been this glitchy rabbit, that being the current iteration of Glitch Trap. It would lead us all around the Pizzaplex and occasionally take over animatronics to help us, so that we could collect the Vanny mask and this glitchy plushie. We would then take these things to the basement to confront the beast and free Gregory. Now, I'll get into the ending in the next section, but for now, let's go over my reasoning and accuracy for this. The thing that really got my wheels turning is this Vanny mask that we see Cassie hold up in the trailer. It's not the mask we see in Security Breach, so I was trying to think of the last time we saw this mask in a FNAF game, and sure, we see it in Help Wanted, but technically the most recent version of it is in Security Breach, just within Princess Quest. That, plus the original file name for the princess being Cassidy, had me linking Princess Quest to Ruin. In fact, my big bold prediction was that Princess Quest's plot is a simplified and summarized version of what we would be doing in Ruin. In Princess Quest, we confront a big, glitchy rabbit thing, and then we fail. We barely make it out alive. We meet someone who gives us some advice and a way to fight back, and we work our way back out. In Princess Quest 3, we actually get transported to something that looks like Help Wanted. When in there, we go through a pixelated version of the corn maze from Help Wanted and get the Vanny mask that is originally in that maze. And then we go to the other side into a weird conveyor belt room with a Chica. But on the other side, we get a Glitch Trap plush. Using both of those, we can enter the final area, which shows us a digital version of the gate that we're locked into in Help Wanted. We open it, a screen plays, and the game ends. I took that and used it to build the plot of Ruin in my mind. We start with Cassie just having a flashlight. Soon after, we encounter M.X.E.S, or at the time, what I thought to be Glitch Trap. And honestly, look, I was wrong, but can you blame me? We literally have a glitch rabbit character, and then the trailer shows us this thing. Of course I would assume it's Glitch Trap. Anyway, we narrowly escape and then start talking to Gregory through a walkie-talkie. That Gregory tells us that he's currently trapped in the pizzeria by that glitchy rabbit, but we can defeat it as long as we can find a Vanny mask and a glitch glitchy rabbit plushie somewhere in the Pizzaplex. I even argued further that the Vanny mask would be in the daycare and the plushie would be in Chica's bakery. The reasons were somewhat tenuous, but it was worth a shot. My main argument for the plush being found in Chica's bakery is that in Princess Quest, we find the plush in a conveyor belt room with a Chica, and Chica's bakery is literally a conveyor belt room with Chica in it. So I figured match that up. And I mean, they have Chica's bakery that was barely used in the base game, so it'd be a good use of it. And while we do go to Chica's bakery, it wasn't in there. There was no plush. That was just straight up wrong. As for the mask, it's even more tenuous. In Princess Quest, the mask is found in a maze with Foxy patrolling it. And if you think about the daycare, it's sort of maze-like being patrolled by the daycare assistant. And I could even link it further with the theory that Foxy was the original daycare assistant. Super quick aside, I know it's not necessarily likely that Foxy was the original daycare attendant, but I do have my reasons for thinking that. Mainly the fact that Pirates Cove is directly linked with the daycare, and we know from the Somnophobia story from Tales from the Pizzaplex that the daycare attendant, Sun and Moon, was not always the original daycare attendant, but rather put there after the previous daycare attendant was removed. So, you know, maybe it was Foxy. So since the daycare is maze-like and it can be patrolled by an animatronic, possibly inferring Foxy at some point, then it was possible that the mask would be there too. Now, as you can see, literally nearly none of that is correct. It turns out you can make a lot of connections to Princess Quest and to an extent FNAF World with Ruin. Doesn't mean it necessarily means anything about the plot of the game. Obviously, the mask is given to us in Monty, there is no plushie, and no, that's M.X.E.S, not Glitchtrap. And while he's hunting us down, he's definitely the good guy here. It's just trying to protect the place. So, yeah, big whiff there. Credit where credit's due, I did guess the mask would eventually be our demise, but that's not a really hard assumption. That's a pretty easy thing to guess. Finally, my prediction on the ending. My theory was at the end of Ruin, we would confront the rabbit thing from the trailer, but Gregory over the walkie-talkie would tell us that putting on the mask and holding the plushie would be enough to defeat the glitch. But when we do that, it would be revealed that we've been talking to the rabbit this whole time, and putting on the mask while holding the plushie would allow it to take over our mind, transporting us into the beginning of Help Wanted 2. This was a bold prediction, and like 30% correct. Let me walk you through my thought process here. I think most of us assumed that Gregory wasn't actually in the pit, and that it was really a trap. And at the time, we did know that the books presented the idea of something pretending to be a child over the radio in order to lure somebody into a trap. I just extended that logic into a similar thing we had already seen in Help Wanted. At the time, and still to a point, I assumed that the thing causing the lingering miasma at the Pizzaplex was Glitchtrap related, if not literally just the lingering effects of Glitchtrap and its quest to materialize in the real world. So I looked to the game Glitchtrap is from to see if I could find a methodology, and something clicked. If we are to assume that Glitchtrap is a modified version of the Mimic 1 program, then the copying voices aspect can apply, something we see it do in Help Wanted. To be specific, Glitchtrap slowly copies and then perfectly copies the voice of Tape Girl. You can hear this in-game. The very first thing we hear in the tapes is,
"Hello? Can you hear me?"
And the very first thing that Glitchtrap is able to say to us is the same thing, but slowed down. I think this proves that at least the 16th tape is fully Glitchtrap. We always knew that the 16th tape was weird in some way. It sounds like she's restarting again and just has a completely different opinion on everything that's happening. And that's because she does. Because that she is actually Glitchtrap. And this plan works. Glitchtrap convinces you to gather all the things, do these specific instructions, and then it takes over the mind of the player. And if that's true, what I thought at the time was that Glitchtrap is just doing it again, but this time in the real world with Cassie, creating a fake distress signal to lure somebody in and prep them to have their mind wiped. And in the Brazil ending, we sort of see this. While I thought we would have two specific items and then confront M.X.E.S and then they would be the one to take over the mind, we do still show up to something that isn't Gregory, and one of the possible endings is putting on our mask and immediately being put into something that is like mind control adjacent. If the Brazil reference is to be believed, then at this point, Cassie is fully taken over by Glitchtrap. So that's pretty close. I didn't expect there'd be other endings, let alone the goddamn scooper from Sister Location, but you know, 1 out of 3 ain't bad. So all in all, what is my track record here? Well, if we rank each prediction out of 10, I'd say that for the Security Breach ending, 8. Mostly right, I just didn't guess all of it. For the main antagonist, a big ol' 0. I literally guessed the opposite of what it was. Now, to be fair, M.X.E.S is antagonistic to us, but he's not a villain. We're the bad guy in this DLC. Not to mention, I straight up thought thought that it was Glitch Trap. For the plot of the game, 5. I did think Gregory was a trap, and I thought that the mask would be seen as helpful but turn out to be a trap later on. But that's pretty easy to guess, and a lot of the rest of it was wrong. The structure wasn't there, the way I thought that this strange plush that hadn't been introduced would be super important, and turns out it's not real. Close but no cigar. For the ruin ending, a solid 3, because I almost perfectly guessed one of the endings. I just didn't guess there'd be multiple endings in the DLC, where the game itself also has multiple endings. So out of a possible total of 40 points, my final ruin prediction got a whopping 16, which is, yeah, that's an F. But honestly, I'm more than happy with it, because the ruin we actually got is really solid, mysteries and all. And if you want to know more about what we don't know about ruin, there's a full video on it right here. Oh. Now of all times? In the meantime, a huge shout out to the best channel members, the Dough Risers, and until next time, as always, stay toasty, slices.